Hello and welcome. You are watching a ChinaImportal.com webinar, and today's topic is shipping, taxes and customs when importing from Asia. This webinar is exclusive to members of the FBA Profit Factory Entrepreneur Program. So, today you will learn the essentials of shipping and customs clearance when importing products from Asia. This is today's presentation overview. First, I will go through sea freight, air freight, customs and taxes in the US and the European Union. In the second part, I will introduce you to our buyer's guide packages, and finally a Q&A session where I will answer your questions about ocean freight, air freight, customs and, well, anything related to logistics. Just a few words about me. My name is Fredrik from Sweden and based in Shanghai since 2011, so it's been 6 years now. I am one of the co-founders of ChinaImportal.com. I'm an expert in product development and sourcing in Asia. I've been contributing content for a couple of years now to global sources on Alibaba.com, probably heard about them, and I've also been featured in Bloomberg and Quartz Magazine and so on. So just a few words giving you a reason for why you should give 45 minutes of your life listening to me. So just about to get started here. Don't want to keep you waiting, but a couple of words about our business, ChinaImportal.com. We are primarily a knowledge base, an online knowledge base for importers. You can go to this URL, ChinaImportal.com/blog, and you will find 180, well more, I think it's about 200 now, guides and interviews with leading industry experts, including Pilar. We also develop and sell information products for importers like you. That's our buyer's guide, and we get to that at the end of today's presentation. So let's get started. Part 1, sea freight. So in part 1 we have Incoterms, 2 FCL and LCL shipping, then shipping documents, shipping costs and export packaging. So an Incoterm is a code, a 3-letter code such as FOB that specifies when, at what stage cargo is transferred from from seller to buyer. So a couple of examples here. FOB means free on board, and FOB includes delivery to the port of loading. That could be here in Shanghai, for example, and export clearance in China or anywhere else. This is not related to China. This is used internationally. Been around for a while. CIF, cost insurance freight, includes everything in FOB, but also shipping to the port of destination, for example, LA. DAP, delivered at place. That's CIF and local port charges in the port of destination and transportation to your warehouse, home or office. So that's an Incoterm, and an Incoterm is the very foundation of shipping. Whenever you receive a quotation from a supplier anywhere, then they will specify an Incoterm. So say that I go on Alibaba.com and I want to get a wristwatch. I want to get a wristwatch quoted. Then I may get something like this: FOB Shanghai, 5.52 per unit. That would be a pretty low quality watch, but just to give you an example here. Now, FOB is less expensive than DAP because DAP takes your cargo a lot further. So if this would be DAP, New Jersey, then maybe it would be 6.2. Just giving you an example, right? So principle is that whenever you get a quote from a supplier, then they will they have calculated that price with one Incoterm as the basis for that price. And you can't compare prices between different suppliers if you don't know the Incoterm. So, LCL and FCL. LCL stands for less than container load, and FCL, almost as creative, full container load. So, an LCL shipment is the right choice if your volume is too big, too bulky and too heavy for air freight, but still not large enough to fill up a container, or at least half a container. The reason why LCL makes sense when you can fill half a container is because the administrative fees are fixed on a per shipment basis. So if you ship half a container load, and that's a 20-foot container, that's 29 cubic meters split onto roughly 15 cubic meters. If you ship 15 cubic meters or more, then you should ship by FCL. If less, then LCL. Two different modes for ocean freight. So next part, shipping documents. So this is why some importers find ocean freight to be more complicated than air freight, because you simply have more documents involved, more paperwork, but it is not as complex as you may think. Now, first we have the bill of lading. This is the main document that sort of lists all necessary information. That's the importer, the seller, the export agent, if any, the customs value, the type of products, the vessel, tracking ID, estimated date of arrival, and so on. Now we do have some attachments, and first we have the commercial invoice. A commercial invoice is a document used by the customs authorities, or in the US, the customs broker, to declare the value of the shipment. So as an importer, you have to be sure that the commercial invoice is correct, because the supplier may not declare the correct value, and it is your responsibility to ensure that the commercial invoice is stating the correct value, the correct customs value. Third, we have the packing list. Now, the packing list is just what it sounds like. It's a list of all the cartons, the quantity of products, and different variations, different SKUs. 4, we have the country of origin certificate. This document is not mandatory in the same way. It may not always be issued. You should have to request this from your supplier if you want it. Now, in my experience, this is a document that is sometimes required by customs brokers and customs authorities, especially in the US for some reason. I'm not sure why, but to apply a given HS code and the correct import duty rate, because you have different rates depending on the origin. Some countries have preferential rates while others do not. So the customs authorities or the broker may want to see proof, some sort of document. Actually, it's not proof because it's self-issued. I guess it could easily be faked, but you should still request it. So who issues the shipping documents? Normally the importer is giving the details to your freight forwarder, who is then sending the documents to you, and that's the only thing you need to do with them. So as an importer, from your perspective, you will receive these documents, and you may have to forward them to your local customs broker or shipping agent in your country. That's about it, though. And of course, you need to double check that all the details are correct. You should receive scanned copies or drafts before they are delivered to your address. Shipping costs. So, as I already mentioned, shipping cost depends on the Incoterm. That's the basis for the shipping cost. Then we have the sea freight charge, and the sea freight charge is based on the volume. Now, air freight is not like that, but I will explain in about 10 minutes. But sea freight charges are basically always calculated from the volume. And then at LCL you also have administrative fees that actually land here on the port charges. So this is one thing that's quite interesting. Port charges tend to be higher, sometimes way higher than the sea freight cost. Quite confusing, isn't it? But one such example is CIF, the Incoterm CIF, which only includes shipping to the port of destination, but not the port charges in the port of destination. So while you may get a very, very low sea freight price, you may get a shock when you receive a very, very big bill after the products arrive in the port of destination. Fourth, we have the insurance. There's no reason not getting insurance. The insurance cost is rarely more than 50 to 100 USD. It's a simple formula for calculating this insurance. and it's not very high. Now, if something goes wrong, and with that I mean transportation damages, which by the way happen way more often than most importers might think, especially in LCL when you're stacking heavy cartons on top of each other from different buyers, then insurance is the only thing that can bail you out. It doesn't cover quality issues, it doesn't cover delays, but it does cover transportation damages, and it's so cheap that you should always make sure that your cargo is insured. Now, you have to tell your supplier or forwarder that it should be insured. You should never assume that they will by default buy insurance from you, a mistake that I see all the time. Local transportation is the fifth main cost that you need to be aware of, and with local transportation I'm referring from the port of loading, port of destination to your address. And of course this depends on how far it is, simply how many miles or kilometers depending on where you live. So these are the five main pillars of shipping costs in ocean freight. It's a different system in air freight. So export packaging, this is also relating to transportation damages. Now, this is something that is very unsexy. It's overlooked all the time by buyers. Many importers use cheap and substandard packaging, and you may wonder why, because if there's anything they should be able to do right, for once at least, that should be using proper cartons, pallets and so on, but they don't. So the problem is that cheap packaging often results in transportation damages. Once, a couple of years back, I had a supplier, they loaded heavy tarpaulins, heavy tarps for construction industry, weighing like hundreds and hundreds of kilos, if not tons, on banana fruit pallets, like these blue plastic pallets, and they were crushed. And as they were crushed, they were crushed into these hard PU plastic shards, sharp as knives, almost cutting through the plastic, cutting through the cartons. So that's how wrong things can go if you don't specify the export packaging. So you have to give very, very clear instructions to your supplier when it comes to packaging. You have to tell them that it has to be loaded in, say, 5-layer cartons loaded on top of ISPM 15 wooden freight pallets. You even have to specify the material. You have to be that specific. Wrapped in plastic cover to protect from mold, humidity. It's very humid in East Asia. And you should never count on your freight forwarder. I'm skipping a few points, sorry about that, but you should never count on your freight forwarder, because they are simply not responsible for the packaging. It's not their job, and they will, in most cases, not even give you a heads up, because they don't know how your cargo should be packed. So this is done at the factory, and you should verify this with a quality inspection. That's how it's done. You should never assume that the supplier will pack your cargo properly. This is as important as your product specification. So already part 2 here, air freight. So this part is a bit more brief. First, we have, when is air freight a viable option? 2, air freight cost. This is volumetric weight, and 2, case studies, and 3, product samples and documents. That is as in shipping product samples and documents. Let's keep going here. So big question, when is air freight a viable option cost-wise? And okay, I think I got this wrong here. Sorry about that. If the weight is below 200 kilos and if the volume is below 2 cubic meters, I would say give air freight a go. If not, if above either of these two, then ocean freight is more cost efficient. So this gives us 2 conclusions. It is not viable for low density cargo, and that could, for example, be apparel, soft toys and so on. And it's more viable for high density products with high value, electronics for example. And the delivery time, 7 to 10 days. This could be the main reason. It's quite common that importers split up shipments. A smaller shipment that's delivered by air, even if it's not a way to save money, it's actually, they might even lose money in that shipment, but they want to get products faster instead of waiting a month for the sea freight shipment to arrive. So they might load, say, 10-15% of the total volume and deliver that by air as a pre-shipment, like a smaller delivery to stock up. But yeah, the delivery time, the low lead time is maybe the main reason why you would consider air freight. Yeah, probably the only reason. Well, it is the paperwork is also simplified. But for bigger shipments, then ocean freight wins hands down, cost-wise at least. So air freight costs. Air freight costs, unlike ocean freight, is based either on the volume or the weight. There's a very logical reason for that. There's a limited amount of space inside a jet, so they have to charge either based on the volume or the weight. So you have a new term that we need to be aware of. That's volumetric weight. So the cost is based on the volumetric weight if it is above a certain threshold, and it is based on the actual weight if below a threshold. So now I'm going to show you what that actually looks like. So in this case study, the actual weight applies. You can see the volume here. So something multiplied with something gives us a volume of 0.64 cubic meters. And we have a weight of 171 kilograms and a volumetric factor of 200. So when you take the volume multiplied with this number, with this figure, you get this. You get a volumetric weight. Now, the volumetric weight is below the actual weight. You see, 127.92 is, well, smaller figure than 171 kilograms. So you guessed it, they will charge you based on the actual weight. The more the better from their perspective. So if the actual weight applies, well, when the actual weight is higher, then the actual weight applies. So let's look at the opposite case study B. Now we have volumetric weight, which applies instead, and the volume is the same. I want to underline that the volume is the same. It's still 0.64, but the weight has been reduced to 91 kilos. It's sort of cut in half. What this means is that the density is much lower. The weight per volumetric unit is much lower now. The volumetric factor is still the same, 200. It's fixed. But when we multiply this, of course we get the same volumetric weight, but it's now the opposite situation. Now the volumetric weight exceeds the actual weight, and you guessed it once more. They will now charge you based on the volumetric weight rather than the actual weight. They charge you based on the highest figure. So this is how air freight works. Unlike sea freight, which is based on the volume. You don't have the same restraint when it comes to weight. Okay, last on air freight, product samples and documents. Very brief. When delivering product samples, cost depends on the weight and volume as always. You're looking at 20 to 100 USD. For documents, that could be a sales contract or the bill of lading. And the other freight documents, you're looking at 20 to 40 USD. And that's all I have to say about that. Now, part 3, customs and taxes. This is when the fun begins. So, we have... Okay, sorry, gonna drink some water. That feels better. Part 3, we have 4 subparts. Customs value, import duties, taxes and customs procedures in the European Union, and last, not least, the United States. Customs value. So what is the customs value? The customs value is the figure that is used by the customs authorities to calculate the import duties and other taxes. So as you see here, the import duty, what you actually pay in like the fixed figure, the amount that you pay is the product of the customs value multiplied with the rate. So if this is 1,000 of whatever currency, and this is 5%, then that gives us 50. That gives us 50. An import duty of 50. Now, the customs value is calculated differently in different markets. For example, in the US, Canada, and Australia, it's based on the FOB value. In the European Union, it's based on the CIF value. Once again, we get back to Incoterms. So now you see that Incoterms is coming back time and time again. You can't skip out on Incoterms. It's the basis for international freight. Now, this means, of course, that the same shipment to the European Union will be taxed higher than in the US, Canada, and Australia. Now, of course, the rate may differ. The taxes also differ. But if the percentage will be the same, then you would still pay more in the EU, because the EU is taxing you based on the product cost and the freight to the port of loading. While in the US, Canada, and Australia, you only pay you pay based on FOB value, which essentially is the product price, and that's it. There are a few more things that can be added. What is added, because it's not your choice, into the customs value, and that's costs that you pay for prototypes, samples, tooling, fees paid to the supplier. And there's a reason for this. The customs authorities, they don't allow you to split up, say, an invoice in two parts: 50% paid for products, 50% paid as some sort of like design fee or engineering fee. They're all taxed as one. You pay this as taxed as one. Now, if you hire a design agency or any sort of service company within your market, or a third market, then that is not added to the customs value, generally. So you work with a design studio in the US, and that is not added to the customs value. Basically, any service that is paid for within your market is never added to the customs value. Should express myself that way instead. So whatever you do, don't try to manipulate the customs value. Customs authorities are not stupid. They know. They have seen a few things through the years, and some importers, they think that they can simply declare whatever they want, but it really doesn't work that way. And if you ever get audited, the first thing they will do on a company that's regularly importing stuff is to check if the transactions actually, like the transactions with foreign suppliers, add up to the declared customs values. I mean, it's not like you can hide this. There will be documentation. This is a very, very easy calculation for them to make. So that's a few words about the customs value. Now, the import duty is calculated on top of the customs value, but you have different rates for different products. And this is why there's something called HS codes. So, an example here, we've got watches with mechanical displays. That's a quartz watch with, that's a watch. It's just a normal watch, a non-digital watch. And here we see that it's quite a specific description, right? If this would be a digital watch or a smart watch, then the HS code would be different. You might be looking at a completely different rate. But in this case, we see that in green here, we got the HS code, and the HS code in turn specifies a rate, a percentage. And this is then added on top of the customs value. Now, in most cases, the rate is set at 3 to 6%, but you have exceptions, and that's for anti-dumping duties, which is, well, it can be explained as, what should I say? It can be explained as a measure to equalize unfair market practices. For example, this price dumping that could be organized by multiple private manufacturers, or they could even receive very, very big state subsidies. And then, these anti-dumping measures, they target entire industries or sometimes just specific manufacturers. But then we're not looking at 3 to 6%. We're looking at maybe 60 to 150%. So you want to look up before you import anything from anywhere that your supplier is not subject to such measures, and that your product or industry is not subject to any such measures. You might be in for quite a shock if you don't look that up. Okay, so finally, European Union and the United States, completely different tax regimes. So, as mentioned, customs value is based on the CIF cost, and this should, of course, be declared accordingly on the commercial invoice. Now, the thing is, with most freight forwarders and suppliers in China, they don't know which customs value apply in which market. They don't know that it's CIF in the EU or FOB in the US. Actually, many think that it's FOB everywhere for some reason. So you have to be careful. You have to be sure that you do the calculation yourself. You do the calculation yourself. You calculate the customs value in your market, and you tell the supplier this is what you should declare on the commercial invoice. So it's up to you to communicate that. Now, to taxes. In the EU, we got something called the VAT, value added tax. And the value added tax is set anywhere from, I think, 17% up to 25%. So, as you see here, this is supposed to be the VAT rate, and the VAT rate is calculated on top of the customs value and the import duty. So if this is 50, this is 50, and this is 20, then we got 100 times 20, which is, 20%, which is also 20. So that's how you calculate that, and it's added on top. Now the thing is, VAT can be deducted. That's a whole different topic, though. It's a big topic. Takes a while to understand the VAT system, but it can be deducted. It's not really a cost for a business. But the total tax you pay upon entry is the VAT and import duty. If you move cargo around within the European Union, you don't pay any import taxes because it's a single market. That's the EU. The US is different. First, we have FOB. The customs value is based on FOB, so it's pretty easy to declare product price. Well, what you paid for the product plus any tooling plus any samples of design services or whatever. That's the customs value. Be sure that the correct customs value is declared on the commercial invoice, as always. Now in the US, big difference is that you need a customs bond. You buy a customs bond on a yearly basis or a per shipment basis. However, I think that this threshold here, it's only required if the shipment is more than 2,500 USD. Now, I think it's possible that they will require that you get a customs bond if you import on a regular basis from abroad. Even if it's below this figure. So generally, you need a tax ID. You need to be a US citizen or have a US company entity to import products to the US. Now, this is a field. There's a lot of things happening in this field. I think, the payment provider, Stripe, they call Stripe. They have these online company formations where you can get an instant US LLC or limited company together with a bank account and all that. That could work. I'm sure there are services helping non-US entities and foreigners in general to import products to the US and get it through customs clearance. This is a very new area. It's moving very fast. So see this as, when it comes to the tax ID and the customs bond, I'm sure a lot of things are moving on the market now, and we're going to see even more things happening on the market in the years to come. This might be outdated by the time you see it. I just wanted to highlight that. Now, you will still need to pay taxes even in the digital age. And first, you need to keep track of the merchant processing fee, the MPF, and that's calculated on also based on FOB value, and the harbor maintenance fee, HMF, which is also based on the customs value. So these two are added on top of the import duty. That's how it works in the US. Completely different tax system. I think most markets are more similar to the European Union system. So in Australia, they have something called GST. In Canada, they have different taxes. They have 3 different taxes, and 1 or 2 apply in each province. So different markets, completely different tax systems. These are the world's 2 biggest markets. That's why I brought them up. Okay, so now we have a Q&A session, and I will answer a few questions, some of which I did not have time or that didn't fit into the main presentation. So let me see here. I'm going to see what I have on the menu today. Hold on. I should have it right here. So, okay, first question. Are there different types of air freight? And yes, there are 2 main types of air freight. First, we have something called economy air freight and then we have express air freight. So it's just what it sounds like. Express air freight is faster, costs more. Economy is the opposite. It's slower. You're looking at maybe 2 weeks, even 3 weeks. No, at 2 weeks. I say 2 weeks, and cheaper. Costs a lot less than express. So these are the two different. And I would say the economy is the most common. Not exactly sure how the supply chain works, but what I do know is that they reroute cargo through the main hubs. For example, you're shipping something to a smaller European country from Shanghai, then they may ship it first to Hong Kong and then forward it to Paris and then onwards elsewhere in Europe, for example. And I guess it's a similar thing in the US. How much? Okay, so next question: how much should I pay per kilogram when I'm shipping by air? And that depends. I would say, I mean, this goes up and down, but I'd say somewhere between 4 to 6 USD per kilogram. And this depends on the contract that you have, which in turn depends on how big you are. The more you ship on a yearly basis, the better discounts you get. And one tip for getting a discount, well, a better discount, is to actually work with a freight forwarder. Some of them offer yearly memberships where you pay a fee every year, and they in turn they give you access they give you discounts, they give you better rates than you would with without being a member. They give you a better rate than if you were not a member. Okay, next question: how can I reduce shipping costs? Well, this sort of comes down to volume. Now, the cheapest way to ship anything is FCL, ocean freight. So, the obvious thing would be, ship more products, ship larger volumes, but that may not be possible. So, assuming you're shipping low volumes on a yearly basis, I would say LCL. Consider LCL. You may save a few hundred USD compared to if you are shipping by if you do air freight. But on the other hand, you need to do your planning better, because you need to plan ahead, given that sea freight can take more than a month. I say 40 days, at least to the US East Coast or to Western Europe, if you include lead times in port of loading and destination. But that's probably the best way if you're shipping a couple of cubic meters, few hundred kilos per shipment. If it's below that, I don't know. Try to find a forwarder willing to work with you. If your volumes are too low for LCL, try to avoid anything below 50 kilos. That's what I would say, because then you're really paying. Then you're gonna pay a quite high rate on a per volumetric unit basis. Okay, next question. Is there any legal way to pay less import duties and taxes? Well, no. These are like the oldest tax codes in the world, and customs authorities have been having a couple of 100 years, if not millennia, to close every loophole there's ever been in when it comes to importing products and import duties. So no, there's not. You should not try to artificially understate the value of the product. You should not try to pay part of the sum as a service fee. None of that is legal. So no, there's no legal way to do that, and you should not even think about that. Okay, we got another question, and that is related to drop shipping. Not sure if any of you actually engage in drop shipping. I did once upon a time, about 10 years ago. That one was my first business. But the question is as following: who is responsible for import taxes in drop shipping? And that's the main. This is why drop shipping is actually quite complex. Now, when you do drop shipping, the buyer is declared as the importer, and that means that by definition they are responsible for paying import duties and all other taxes. So that's something that most buyers don't like, in addition to the fact that they have to wait a very long time, because it easily takes 2-3 weeks to ship products like unit by unit from a supplier in China to the US or Europe. It's very slow. So that's one reason why I don't believe in drop shipping. Okay, that was the Q&A. Now let's go to the Buyer's Guide 2017. This is our information product, and it's highly relevant for anyone interested in shipping. Now, the Buyer's Guide is a more it's a lot more than just a shipping information product. It is essentially a collection of tools that you need to manage the import process by yourself from your home or your office without ever going to China. And as you can see here, we have a collection of different buyer's guides, different products, the all categories version, apparel and textiles, wristwatches, home and furniture, and a bunch more that I will get to in a bit. These are just a few examples. Now, the buyer's guide package includes the buyer's guide, a video walkthrough, shipping, customs and tax guide, get to that in a bit, supply check system, online advisor, document templates, and discounts on quality control, sea and air freight valued at 150 USD. We're actually working right now on some really interesting things. We're going to add more partners to our discount network, so I think that will be announced later this year. So now in this webinar, I will just dive into these two parts, the main features of the buyer's guide package. So first we have the buyer's guide overview here, and the buyer's guide is a step-by-step guide, 85 plus pages, that guides you through the entire process. And this includes creating a product specification, doing supplier research, that's finding suppliers, verifying suppliers. Well, anything you need is a step-by-step process from identifying suppliers on Alibaba or global sources, and then using available information to weed out the bad suppliers and identify the qualified ones. In part 3, we go through how you can get your product sample made according to your quality requirements and your labeling requirements. That could be getting a product branded, how to customize a product, well, how to define a product. Everything that takes you from a design drawing or even a photo to a finished product ready for mass production. And in part 4, you will get guided step by step through the entire process that, well, around production and quality control. So it starts off with a sales contract, how you draft a sales contract, then how you do payments, how you can prevent fraud so you don't get scammed, how you manage quality control, and finally lab testing if needed. It also covers a regulatory overview where you get an overview of all the product safety standards, labeling requirements, document requirements, and testing requirements for the United States, the UK, and the European Union. Last, the buyer's guide also covers task lists, case studies, a glossary, and a 4-part video walkthrough that guides you through each of these 4 steps. So that's the buyer's guide. Now, relating to today's topic, we also have the shipping, taxes, and customs guide, and I want to underline that this is all the same package. These are all in one. This is not a separate information product. So, as you can see here, we have 2 different versions of the shipping guide, and we have one for the USA, one for the European Union, well, because you had 2 different tax systems. So while I say 50% is the same, 50% is unique. So in this guide, you get a step-by-step overview of the shipping procedures. You will learn how to minimize shipping costs so you can start saving money on your very first shipment. Import duties, taxes, and fees explained in plain English so that everyone can understand. Introduction, and in that guide into product sample, air freight, how you can avoid shipping scams, and finally a shipping checklist that gives you very, very practical overview, a task list essentially for what to do, how to plan, manage, and follow up on shipping. Basically, you don't need to know anything about sea freight or air freight. Just follow the checklist, and yeah, it will work out by itself. And in addition, you will get access to our discounted freight forwarder network. So you will get direct access to our 2, well, currently as of today, 2 freight forwarders, one based in Shanghai, one based in the US. So the buyer's guide is available in 9 different versions. We have the all categories version, you already saw that, apparel and textiles, children's products, accessories and jewelry, watches, kitchen, electronics, LED products, home and furniture. And as you are a member of this program and as you are watching this webinar, you will get a 30% discount on all buyer's guide packages. And as you can see, it covers the buyer's guide, the shipping, customs and tax guide, a supply check system, the online advisor, which I just want to mention that is a consulting platform where you can go submit an inquiry and get assistance. You can ask us anything about buying from China and you will get access to our team of experts. We will reply to your tickets within 24 hours. So it's sort of like having your own procurement expert in your phone or laptop. Document templates, which covers everything from sales contract templates to NDA and quality control checklist. And as I mentioned, I think 3 times so far, the discounted partner network. So this is what you get. All of this is discounted with 30%. So all you need to do is to use the code here, Pilar 30x17. And you will get 30% off on any buyer's guide package. So write this code down below here so you can use it right now or maybe later this week. So this is some basic order instructions here on the right. All you need to do is to go to our website, ChinaImportal.com. You select your product category, for example, electronics category, electronics guide. Then you scroll down to the price table. You select a version. We have different price levels, and then you use the code Pilar 30x17 in the checkout, and it will automatically deduct 30%. Once you have completed your order, you will get a receipt. You will also get instant access to ChinaImportal.com/my account. So you can get started with this right away. You can start asking us questions within 5 minutes and using the content here, so you can get your product made in Asia on time, on budget, and delivered. So maybe I should answer a few common questions. Now, one question we often get is, which guide should I get? And well, I normally say get the guide that is the closest to your product category. Simply. So you buy toys, okay, then you should go for children's products. You buy t-shirts, well, apparel, textiles. You buy food packaging, kitchen utensils, because that covers, say, FDA regulations and so on. So if you don't have, if your product simply is not covered by any of our buyer's guides, you should go for the all categories version that you can see here, because that is covering basically any product, in the sense that the procedure is broadly the same for all products. What differs is, well, of course, spec sheets. You have different product specifications and quality options for different products. You have different regulations. You have different quality control checklists, but it still gives you, I would say, 90%. This version relies a bit more on checklists rather than ready-made spec sheets and so on. But if your product is simply not covered, then reach out to me or reach out to Pilar, and yeah, we can give you guidance on this. So just before we wrap this up, 30% discount. Use this code here. You go to ChinaImportal.com. You select your guide. You select your price. Well, your version, and then you use the code in the checkout. And step 5, you get instant access to our team of procurement experts. So that's it. Thank you everyone for attending this. I hope you learned a few things. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. I know it can be overwhelming, and but I think you will be able to digest this. So thank you everyone, and have a great day.